Hello everyone, we are Team Mercedes presenting our computer graphics final project. So these are our team members Shivani, Vinod, and Venkat. Before getting on to the project, we just wanted to introduce our company. So we set up a company for designing the various things in like houses, bridges, roads, parkways, and stadiums. We're a company that does the designing basically. So our motto is that we strive and work hard for achieving perfection and delivering quality products to the customers. So we generally follow a democratic approach. So we're a team of three members. So we have a no head and tail system where one feels pressurized. So everyone comes with their own ideas and they present it to us. So coming to our project, we've designed an amphitheater for this course. So why amphitheater? So amphitheater involves a lot of shapes and a lot of orientations that need to be taken into consideration, a lot of parameters for the from a graphical standpoint. So we've been using software known as Blender. It's a freeware and open source software. And the basic technical model that we've used is low poly modeling. Coming to defining low poly modeling, we have a polygon mesh and 3D computer graphics. So if there's any object, for instance, we take a tree that's been here, a lot of trees are here. So considering one of the tree, we have a lot of polygons in it. So if we come to the trunk of the tree, it's basically comprising of a cylindrical shape on top of which some triangles and some hexagonal structures are placed. So low poly, what it does is it divides the entire object into a set of polygons. It is used in a lot of real-time applications such as computer games. And the main advantage of low poly modeling is it decreases rendering time. So like I said, the software that we have been using is Blender, and it's an open source software and it uses open graphical language to provide consistent experience, and it is well suited for individuals and small studios. So for small scale development, Blender is used and it's compatible with all the platforms, let it be Windows, Linux, or any other Mac or any other things. Coming to the Blender features. So Blender offers a large variety of features and it helps in creating a lot of 3D models. So one of the prominent features that we'll be using will be sculpting, 3D modeling, UV unwrapping, texturing, and rendering. Coming to the tools that we've been using in Blender, they are Blender Select, Blender Subdivide. So what is Blender Select? Oh, when we use Blender Select, it is the object is in edit mode, so we can change and reorient the shape of an object, and whether it's a vertex or a face or multiple edges can be used. We can either move it, we can extrude it. So that can be projected outside the plane, inside the plane, and it could be reoriented in such a way that it could uh, it could be used in a lot of it can be used a lot of dimensions. For example, the pyramid can be inverted or it can be reoriented in such a way that it completely looks different from a particular angle. Coming to the second tool that we've used in our modeling is Blender Subdivide. Coming to the Blender Subdivide, it uses basically a loop cut that is in the edit mode. So when we're using such tools, everything, the objects that are we're going to design is basically in edit mode. So we are changing the number of partitions that are being there in the plane. So we are being subdividing a plane into multiple parts that is of equal size. Then we go back to the Blender select, and then we turn this plane into a terrain or with mountains in it. When we designed the amphitheater, another method that we used was sculpting. So sculpting is giving or altering the shape of an object. So for instance, if we are taking a regular shape such as a cube, a cuboid, that's a regular three-dimensional shape. So in order to give it a look or a feel such that it looks like a brick, or when we're building a wall, it sculpts like just like these sculptures are being carved out of some basic stones. The cuboid is remodeled or rendered in such a way using the sculpting tool that it is the in each individual element is retextured, and the vertices or faces or edges are really changing. Coming to the next tool, we have the array modifier. When it comes to the array modifier, this modifier is useful to create numerous copies of an object. So for instance, while designing the amphitheater, how was the array modifier used? If we want to say, if I designed a row where people are going to sit and listen to some concert or something. So the array modifier, what it does is it is easy to replicate the rows back and forth, that is from the front row to the back row, in such a way that the array modifier takes the object as an the set of seating chairs or set of the 3D objects, it takes into an array and directly replicates that. And they just change the coordinates are just changed, the locations are just changed. So the array modifier is used in that way. Coming to the bevel modifier. The bevel modifier is used to bevel the edges of the mesh. That is, for instance, we have a square that has sharp edges. So the bevel just slants it or gives it a rounded touch. The bevel modifier has been used in a lot of instances while we're designing the amphitheater, mainly the pillars or some objects near the stage where we really needed to cut out some of the sharp edges and make it look really blunt. So this is how our amphitheater, when it was in the one of the developmental stages, we used a lot of methods known as we use a lot of Blender methods. That was like I said before, like the array modifier and the bevel modifier. Coming to the rounded edges, this is where we use the bevel modifier. And when it comes to these steps where there's the seating or where the audience is going to sit, we developed a first row or this maybe two or three rows, then we use the array modifier to directly replicate that. So this is how we designed the basic architecture of the amphitheater. So coming to the Blender software, we have rendered this by the small cube by right clicking on it and selecting it as running as administrator. Then the cube has been selected, and then we have zoomed it into for the different X, Y, and Z axes. To change the dimension to look at like a brick, we have to scale it through the Z axis, and then pressing S plus Z, then you can scale it down along the Y axis. So uh, different key combinations for scaling the brick. Coming to again, when we scale that to a brick size, so when we are satisfied with the size of the cube, we switch to the sculpt mode, and then on the right hand side, the tool section. Then we turn on to the Dino Topo and change the uh, data from 12 pixels to 8 pixels. And on the symmetry property, we turn off X, and then we run the brush along the edges of the cube by right-clicking that. Coming to the object mode, we select the brick by right-clicking on it and then pressing Shift plus D. We then place it right next to the original brick by preserving the G plus X so that the faces of these two bricks can touch again. And coming to the next step that we did in our project was we selected all the bricks, pressing Shift and right clicking on every object. And in the right hand side of the screen panel, we selected modifiers button and we clicked on add new array modifier. And add a new array modifier, and we increased the count to 6, and in the relative offset we kept y and z value to 0 and x value as 1. And clicking on apply, we are selecting all the bricks and again adding new array modifiers. In the relative offset, we keep x and z value as 0 and y value as 1, and then we click on apply. And coming to the select all bricks, we pressing Shift plus A. And then we join all the bricks, and by pressing Control plus J, we make it as the one platform for bricks. And we select the platform by right clicking on it and duplicating it by pressing Shift plus D. So we move this new platform of bricks along Z axis so that it is kept on the top of old platform. And after that we have a rough model, uh, the rough model of the amphitheater, where there are partially some amounts of data. So for the stones, we added a spear and we applied a decimate modifier on it to reduce the number of faces in the edit mode, and then we selected random faces and then we moved it to randomly get into the stone shape. So we made 3 copies of these and we applied a different color of brown on it, and by adding new modifier and selecting brown color and reducing the intensity to 0 to remove the glossiness. So we repeat the same to the other 2 stones and give it different shades of brown. We place these stones around the boundary of the pond by duplicating it multiple times and scaling it to reduce the size of these stones or increase the size of these stones. So this is how the stones were designed, and the mountains as well. And coming to the trees, tree branches or tree trunks, we added a cylinder to reduce the vertices to 12. Now when we come to the edit mode, the top vertices of the cylinder and vertices of the cylinder are extruded and randomly in a zigzag manner. So to get the branch of this tree, we add multiple branches. So this is how the tree looks in the 2-dimensional form. Then slowly we render it, and that's how we get the tree trunk and its green leaves. So now to add leaves, I've added a spear and scaled it downwards along the z-axis. So I've done it by pressing just S plus Z. So that's a hotkey combination for that. And we are using sculpt. We have sculpted it by going it into sculpt mode and the brush over the spear. So we go back into the object mode and make multiple copies of this by pressing Shift plus D and then putting it right next to each other. So we are adding multiple shades of green to the spear by adding new material and assigning the color and reducing the intensity to 0 eventually. So we place these spears on top of the branches and to get the structure like tree. So this is how the process is repeated and we get a lot of trees. Then coming to the next image, that is for clouds. So now to add clouds, we have to get the top view of the amphitheater. and we added a spear and gave it a new material like gray color. We reduced the intensity to 0, and then we duplicated it 2 times by pressing Shift plus D, and then moved these duplicated and placed it on each side of the original model in such a way that 1 by third of the spear is inside the middle spear. So we scaled it down so that it is smaller than the middle spear, joined all the spears as one. And for the background, we added a sun to increase the illumination, like I said, and then selected the sun and changed the color of the sun to light yellow from white. Increase the energy to 1.5 and clicked on the ray trace. We moved the sun to the right side of the camera so that the light of the sun falls diagonally on the amphitheater, and the illumination is quite pretty decent. And the color of the sky is changed, where the horizon is white in color, zenith is in light blue colors. So we rendered it finally. So this is how the basic architecture looks, but when it comes to the real image, uh, so continuing our presentation, we have the simple deform modifier and the decimate modifier. So what are they generally used for? A simple deform modifier is used to bend or twist an object, and the decimate is used to reduce the face of an object. So to get a real look, or which the objects that are being rendered or designed that we have to get in order to get the look of a real world object. So we use basically these modifiers where small deformities or small distorted shapes can be used in order to get a real object out of it. So at last, after we designed the amphitheater, we added a lot of trees, mountains, a pond beside the amphitheater so that it looks, it looks good, and a lot of clouds in order to complete the scene so that it looks a little bit scenic and a little bit real kind of thing, so that it real looks good. So coming to the materials that we have been using, so we had to keep up the artistic qualities of the object materials that have been used, and the materials that have been used are various properties of an object such as color, shininess, and transparency. So throughout the project, we have used various materials to color our objects. Coming to the lighting, sky, and water. So the lighting we have used is for better lighting in our scene. We added sun and we have increased its strength. So uh, to get a more illuminating picture or to get a more illuminating model, we used a lot of effects that increase the lighting. And coming to the sky, we added the sky so that it looks like it's a real amphitheater, or it to give a more realistic look to our model. We added a sky in our background, and so we just turned on the sky property that can be used from the Blender directly, and we changed the horizon to white color and the zenith to light blue. So these customizations have been done. And coming to water, we have been using the transparency property on the material to adjust the Fresnel. So when it comes to rendering of the amphitheater, so we generated a photorealistic or a non-photorealistic image from a three-dimensional or two-dimensional model. So this is how our final project looks. It looks pretty decent. The mountains, the clouds, that gives a really a feel as if it's located somewhere in between the mountains and somewhere in between the woods. So this is our amphitheater, and there are some different views of it. The top view, pillars and the stones have been designed really well, and this is the center stage where the main part, the core part of the amphitheater, where the seating and the main center stage has been designed. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to us patiently, and have a good day.